Okay, so we are finally live now, and I guess it's times to study history, maybe for art fundamentals. So now let's see if I can share my screen. Let me start with this. Select this tab. Okay, share. All right, so now that we are live, we'll just start uh, studying the methods and materials of sculpture. So let's go back a little and I'll give you a little bit of like briefing before we start. So today what we're going to learn about is that we're going to learn about the medium of plaster of Paris and taking molds and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess now we are here. So the book currently I am right now streaming. It's the methods. That's the materials and methods of sculpture. All right, and I got this book from internet. It's by Jack C. Rich, and it's a really good book, but I would say bit lengthy because there are no visual cues or anything here. It's completely text, unlike other books. So yeah, so let's begin the our this streaming lesson. So plaster of Paris. Let's talk about it historically. So the word gypsum is derived from the Greek word gypsos, and according to this, the use of gypsum as a sculpture material dates back to antiquity. So it's very much clear to us that it's not something very new, and it has been used historically. So many contemporary writers trace the origins of earliest uses of the substance to Greece, and they they cease their search. That the use of the material was familiar to the Greeks is revealed by the writings of Theophrastus and Pliny. Pliny, in his Natural History, which is the book, and it's the 35th edition, in on volume 153, it attributes to Herodotus the discovery of fashioning plaster cast of statues. So let's first talk about that the use of materials familiar to Greeks is revealed by the writings of Theophrastus and Pliny. So who is Theophrastus? We'll look it up right now. Before that, hmm, there is my hmm. So let's search with Bing, who was Theophrastus. So Theophrastus was an ancient Greek philosopher and a naturalist, and he was a very close colleague and a successor of Aristotle. He not only wrote on various topics including ethics, logics, metaphysics, botany, and natural history. So I guess that the ancient Greeks were polymaths. So it's not only Aristotle, but his close eight like Theophrastus was also part of it. And in his writings, we can see the mention of plaster. And let's talk about this other name, Pliny. So Pliny the Elder, right? Huh. So Pliny the Elder was a Roman author, naturalist, and a commander of the early Roman Empire. He wrote the Natural History, a comprehensive encyclopedia of human knowledge and natural world. Right? And so, if you talk about it, we can see that. Pliny was very important. Hmm. So it was Pliny the Elder he was the first person who modeled a likeness in plaster of a human being, first time in history. Being from a living face itself, established the method of pouring wax into plaster mold and then making uh, share this tab. Huh. So it was him who first created this technique. Hmm. Some authorities state that the plastic art was first invented by Roicus and Theodorus at Samos, long before the expulsion of the Bacchidae from Corinth. But that's when the Demetrius, who in Etruria became the father of the Turkic king of Roman people, was banished from the same city. He was accompanied by the modelers Eusifer, I mean Euclid, Diopus, Eugramus, and they introduced modeling to Italy. The method of adding red earth, I think by the red earth they mean that the soil, the red soil, to the material, or else modeling out of red chalk was an invention of the Buddhists. If you know, so the chalk is lime, yeah. So was an invention of Buddhists, and he first placed mask as fronts the outer gutter tiles on roofs. These at the first stage he called prostypa, and but afterwards he likewise made ectypa. So hmm. The first person who modeled likeness of established was Lysistrus of Sicyon, the brother of Lysip, Lysippus, of whom we have spoken. Hmm. I have actually no idea that who is Lysistratus of Sicyon. So right now, I would say that even I am very much new to. So Lysistrus was a Greek sculptor of 4th century BC, brother of Lysippus. According to the Pliny the Elder, he followed a strongly realistic line, being the first sculptor to take impressions of human faces in plaster. Let's look up some images. Hmm. I'm not sure if it's this sculpture is created by him or not. Huh. Okay, so I think we are all familiar with these works of Socrates and Alexander the Great. I mean, not their works, but it's them which have been portrayed in these sculptures. So we are all aware of it. So they are assumed to be a copy of works of Lysippus. Huh. And not only just that, Lysippus, he was from Sicyon. He produced around 1500 sculptures according to Pliny the Elder. Only a few Roman copies survived. Lysippus, as we have said, was the most prolific artist, made more statues than any other sculptor, among them the man using a body scraper, which made Marcus Agrippa give statue of himself and emperor, although he had quite restored kind elder. Hmm. So I would say that this was first created by Lysippus, the sculpture of Hercules Farnese, but it was originally in bronze, but then Its copy was produced by Glycon of Athens Marble, and it's kept in National Archaeological Museum, Naples. Hmm. So I guess we have just lost the topic. Now we'll go back to our topic again, and I'm really sorry for. Huh. So where were we? So that the we were around that the use of gypsum as sculpture material dates back to antiquity, and many contemporary writers trace the origin or earliest uses of the substance to Greece, where they sees their search that the use of material was familiar to Greeks. It's revealed by the writings of Theophrastus and Pliny. Now we know who is Pliny a little bit, and we also know who is Theophrastus. And Pliny, in his Natural History book, 35th edition, I mean 35th volume, attributes the Lysistros that's for the discovery of fashioning plaster cast of statues. Huh. So Lysistratos also discovered how to take cast from statues, a practice which was extended to such a degree that no figure or statue was made without a clay model. Huh. So it is like that after the Lysistros discovered this technique of taking plaster molds. I mean, no statue was made or no sculpture was made without uh, without taking mold of the clay model in plaster. So yeah, whilst this statement by Pliny is accepted by many scholars, and while plaster negative molds that date from Hellenistic period have been discovered, this contention completely ignores the Egyptian use of the material. During early periods of Egyptian culture, particularly during the reign of Akin Athene, the parts of the human body or of statues were plaster used as model. So it during the I would say early periods of Egyptian culture, and we talk about like the Akhetanin period. So parts of human body or statues were cast in plaster and used as models. The familiar cast of faces and other parts of human form found at the El Emera date from about 1370 BC. The earliest known Egyptian example of such a cast is a mask discovered in the temple of Step Pyramid of Saqqara. So now let's search this. It is believed to be the death mask of King Teti of 6th dynasty. Let's search the death mask of King Teti and we will see what comes up. Hmm. It's a mask here, I would say, and King Teti. And it's kept in British Museum. It's King Teti was the first king of Egypt's old kingdom. So this was the plaster casting, and we can see something popping out of his mouth. We can say that it was created after he died. Hmm. Let's go to our topic again. Shit this time. So not only just that. Hmm. Now the art of casting in plaster declined with the fall of Rome, and literature makes no reference to it again until the time of Andrea Verrocchio. So until the time of Andrea Verrocchio, nothing was mentioned again. in the literature, as the art of casting in plaster declined with the fall of Rome, and literature literally makes no reference to it again. So, what time period are we talking about now? It's 1432 to 1488. Before that, when we were talking about the King Teti's death mask, it was around 2400 BCE, right? So now, so much, I mean, like, literally, so much time has passed since the first reference of plaster cast, and until the time of Andrea Verrocchio. And it is literally written down there. I should have checked. Sorry, that when we first were talking about the Lysistrosna, he was a Greek sculptor of the 4th century BC. He was a brother of famous sculptor Lysippus. Regarding precise nature of his, and also, if I am reading right, so there was also some controversy regarding the precise nature of his use of plaster. I mean, the Lysistratos. Some claim that the practice was essentially one of the modeling with gypsum. So we don't know if he was modeling with the gypsum or not, but let's see. And here, hmm, now moving on to the next page. Andrea took much pleasure in. We are talking about Andrea Verrocchio now. So Andrea Verrocchio, his time period from 1432 to 1488. So yeah, Andrea took much pleasure in making mold models of gypsum from which he might take cast. He made his molds from a soft stone found in neighborhood of Volterra, Siena, and other parts of Italy. So Andrea was taking molds from soft stone, which was found in neighborhood of Volterra, Siena, and other parts of Italy, which being burnt in fire, pounded finely, and kneaded with water, is rendered so soft and smooth that you may make it into whatever form you please, but after it becomes so close and hard that the entire figures may be cast in molds formed of it. Andrea therefore adopted the practice of casting in molds, thus prepared such natural objects as he desired to have continually before his eyes for the better and more convenient imitation of them in works, hands, feet, the knee, the arm, the torso, etc. Artists afterwards, but in his time, began to make casts of the heads of those who died, a thing they could by this means do at but little cost. Whence it is that one sees in every house in Florence the vast number of these likenesses over the chimneys, doors, and cornices, many of them so well done and natural that they seem alive. Huh. So, hmm. So it is said that Andrea adopted the practice of casting in molds, है ना? And he prepared such natural objects as he desired to have continually before his eyes for the better and convenient imitation of them in his works, like hand, feet, and other parts of the body. And afterwards, artists, but in his time also, they began to make casts of the head of those who died. So you mean I'm talking about we are talking about the concept of death mask here now, because we can see that in his time began to make cast of head of those who died, a thing they could by this means do at but little cost. Hence it is that one sees in every house in Florence vast numbers of these likenesses over the chimneys, doors, windows, cornices, many of them so well done and natural that they seem alive. We're indeed greatly indebted for this to the skill of Andrea Verrocchio, who was one of the first to put practice into execution. So now let's search so that we can have a visual cue and understand better what they are talking about, because otherwise they are simply just words, and we are visual artists, we are visual art students, so we need to understand what do they mean by this here. And it's an old book, so there is not much visual stuff around. Hmm. So now let's search after this time. Huh. Let's search Copilot for this. Hmm. So, based on this context, the passage that we're reading, it's referring to the tradition of making death masks, plaster or wax cast of deceased person's face. This practice became widespread in Florence, where artists used to create lifelike representation of individuals, often displayed in homes as a way to preserve their memory. Andrea Verrocchio, a renowned sculptor and painter of the Italian Renaissance, is credited with pioneering this method. His skill in casting allowed for the creation of highly detailed and realistic likeness of and contributing to the popularity of the practice. The book likely discusses how sculptors used materials like plaster of Paris or wax molds to achieve these results, as well as the broader impact of casting techniques on sculptures. And let's search for some death mask. Death mask from Andrea Verrocchio Stein. Right. Let's search for death mask Italy from 15th century because Andrea Verrocchio was from Italy, right? And now let me search for this on Bing and Google alike. Copy and okay. So 15th century Italy death masks were used as mementos of the dead and also source for creating portraits of the deceased. Let's and purpose of the death mask was mementos. They were kept as keepsakes by families to remember the deceased. Sculptural models, they provided direct likeness for artists creating portraits of the deceased. So even if we not talk about this complicated book we are reading, we from my prior knowledge, I have read about the Italian artist and the Renaissance artist. They used to take from it's a practice that is very much prevalent, not now, but it was very much prevalent till 20th century also in Italy and other places to take death mask of a person of sometimes important people like businessmen, leaders for to for the purpose of creating a sculpture posthumously. So it was a very prevalent practice back then. And fun fact if I tell you, so if you know there's a model used for CPR, right? For practicing CPR, if you are getting trained to do CPR, so it was first a death mask of a lady who drowned in some part of Europe. And if I'm not wrong, I don't remember the location right now exactly, but it was dead mask apparently, and the artist was so much fascinated by it that it got used to create. It was used to create as the model, or it served as the model for the CPR training. And hmm, now let's come on to our topic. So it was used to create and provide a direct likeness for artists creating portraits of the deceased. And it was a symbolic display, so they were displayed in homes, particularly in atria of patrician families, as a symbol of social and political prominence. And material and creation. These masks were typically these masks were typically made of. wax or plaster created by casting a mold or taken from the face of the deceased. The tradition of death mask in Italy had roots in ancient Mediterranean cultures and was revived during the Renaissance. So it had its roots in Mediterranean cultures. So even this is new for me. And the death mask of architect Brunelleschi made in 1445 is exhibited in the Opera Museum of Duomo, Florence. It's an example we are talking about right now. And if I talk about other examples, so Mask of Dante Alighieri, while not a true death mask, it displayed in Palazzo Florence. So I don't know much about him. So let's search for it. Dante Alighieri. Hmm. So this is Dante Alighieri's death mask. It has long been thought that the Dante's funeral mask was applied directly to her face. In reality, it is only a plaster copy from the original that was probably wax. Since Dante's reputation had gained such extent over the centuries, it would then have decided to reproduce the said original mask, taking its imprint, but this time in plaster. The mask picked up on the original body mask now disappeared, thus represent Dante's true face. So the original mask, because of the medium of wax, it has long disappeared, and it's just a plaster cast now, which has survived. Hmm. The art of funeral mask in Florence and Dante death mask. So, according to the painter, right architect Giorgio Vasari, funeral mask was started in Florence and until the mid 15th century onwards. Hmm. Now, let's share my screen. There is.